Welcome, you're watching Kaleidoscope Srilanka Live News Capsule.
Sri Lanka is no stranger to blackouts. In 2016, we had 3 happen within 6 months. It seems that little can do a lot of damage to our electricity supply. The latest power outage just weeks ago was blamed on a monkey. Professor Rohan Samarajiva has been vocal about our country's issues with energy and electricity, so who better to discuss our monkey problems? So what we faced with an island-wide outage of power, was it really monkey business?
Look, I mean, a nationwide electricity network will always have problems. I don't know whether it's a monkey, whether it's a human being, whether it's a tree, whether it's lightning, something will happen, right? That's not the issue. The issue is that it became a nationwide blackout. That is, I would say, shameful. I think that's the only word I can use for this reason, that we went through 2 nationwide blackouts in 2016, reports were commissioned, recommendations were made, all these things were done. 8 years later, we still go through the same thing all over again. That is the tragedy. That is the problem.
What exactly caused this outage, do you know?
I don't know what caused the problem in Panadura. Somewhere in the Panadura area, something happened. That's why I said a tree could have fallen, lightning could have struck, whatever. These things happen. I mean, we can't prohibit these things from happening. But we can protect against is a localized problem becoming a nationwide problem, tripping the coal power plant. Now, I think I need to explain this. Any time that electricity is produced in a network like ours, it has to be consumed. So when you have a nationwide outage, consumption goes down to 0. That means that the coal power plant, Norochale, which was producing electricity, there's no electricity to give. So it has to trip, it has to shut down. And it takes X number of days for it to come back on, and cost. So that is the problem. This has happened before. And why we don't think about these things? Why we don't make plans? The problem is the transmission network that is obsolete. And the problem is the control center, which should be capable, which should be designed to shut down and manage the flow of electrons. If that is done, you isolate the problem area, the rest of the country keeps functioning. The structural problem that I identified, that I wrote about, is that we have not invested, we have not built, we have not remedied the identified problems in the transmission network. That needs to be done. Now, the problem is a completely state-owned entity is not capable of actually making rational decisions and making the necessary upgrades. And the 2024 Act allowed for 50% participation by an investor in the transmission business and for 100% for the extensions on the edges, the line connecting the grid to the wind power plant or a solar farm or something like that, where there isn't one. So the whole idea was that these things would have investment. But our thinking, the engineers' thinking, is we must continue to get loans and they must control everything. That is not the way the world works. We must get investment into the transmission network. And by the way, right now, at this moment, 9 electrical engineers have been appointed to look at the 2024 Act, an act passed by Parliament. And one of their recommendations is we should go back to 100% government-owned transmission network design.
The high generation of solar power was also blamed for the outage. Does that make sense?
I think the network is changing. When the network changes, that is the generation sources change, you have to have a transmission network that is appropriate for that, and you have to have the software upgraded to deal with this at the control center in Palavatta. Now, those 2 elements I think we don't have. So I'm not going to be blaming anybody or anything. I think it's just that we are not adapting to the changing nature of the network.
What is the solution to not having a similar outage in the immediate?
You see, there's something called the Manitoba HVDC, some really fancy outfit in Canada, and we had commissioned a report from them on the 2016 blackouts And the Public Utilities Commission had given some directions, but they're not implementing the directions because they don't have the money and they don't have the flexibility, given they are part of this monolithic integrated entity called the CEB. So CEB has to be broken up as we were planning in the 2024 Act. Now they are trying to put the thing back together, keep it a monolithic entity. No, it has to be broken up. And we have to open the doors for more investment and flexibility. And that is the solution.
And what will be the challenges in getting that solution?
We've had an act from 2008 or 2009 that has kept on producing these kinds of nationwide blackouts and various problems, right? And the inability to invest in the network, the inability to even purchase the necessary fuel so that we don't have blackouts. We've had all that. So now the unfortunate thing is that even though we looked at that experience, and from 2022 to 2024, knowledgeable people, not necessarily all electrical engineers by the way, worked in committees and came up with a new design. Now I may not agree 100% with that, but then that's the way the world is. I agree 70% or 80% with the new design. Now, let's protect that design instead of trying to go back to 2008, which is a failed piece of legislation. That's what they want to do.
What is your opinion about alternative energy?
I have been fully supportive of the objective of going 70% renewable. And recently this government said they'd like to make it 100%. Now, I personally think that 100% may be unrealistic, but I'm willing to aim for a number even between 70 and 100. But the point we have to understand is that if we want to get there, we have to build up a transmission network. Now, there are two completely different visions of electricity supply, right? We need a network, and I think it's more efficient. However much we think that, having a little bit of rooftop solar here and there is the way to go, what is truly efficient is big windmill farms and big solar farms. I mean, when you talk about solar farms, you're talking about 200 acres under solar, that kind of stuff. That stuff has got certain scale efficiencies. We should not walk away from that at this point. I would rather go with that than invest in a LNG terminal, which the current CEB chairman is wanting to do. Because if you do invest in a LNG terminal now, in order to not waste that investment, that's a significant investment, in order not to waste it, we'll have to be committed to LNG for the next 25 years maybe. So 100% renewables is completely out. We cannot, because we have to keep using this stuff. So I think the government and the CEB should get its act together and figure out what they really want. I think it's 70% we can all manage. With 80, 90, it's a stretch. 100%, I'm not against it. I don't think it's very practical.
Did you know that Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn? Remember to subscribe, follow and like us for more.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.